Hi, my name is Eric Baker. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for Music and the Visual Arts at UTPB, and I'm thrilled to be here on the catwalk.
The Catwalk's nonprofit of the week is One Accord for Kids, ensuring the safety and well-being of children in West Texas through foster care system by providing permanency, healing, and stability. Connect with them at oneaccordtx.org. Collaboration is paramount to the Catwalk, and the Catwalk Media Group is about empowering your brand with visual storytelling. Whether it is through podcast and video production, website design, social media management, or reaching a broader audience, connect today at catwalkmediagroup.com. Well, welcome again, all you catwalkers, to another week of the Catwalk. I'm your host, Jay Whitlow, and as always, I'm joined by Chris DeGaulle over on the controls. And today, sitting on my left, please welcome Eric Baker. Welcome to the Catwalk.
Thanks, Jay. Really pleased to be here.
We're excited for you being here. Now, this is special because I've had some pretty high-profile influencers on, but none that have been on daytime television, right?
Yeah.
And
okay.
the Today Show, right?
Okay,
So
yep.
I know we're going to get into your story in a little bit, but this is exciting for me. This is like my celebrity sighting.
Sure.
Right?
Oh, yeah, out in the wild even.
Yeah, exactly, in the wild. So it had something to do with your musical ability.
That's right.
You play trumpet.
I do.
I think your Instagram sign-on is EB Trumpet.
That's exactly
TikTok.
right.
You've got like 44,000 something followers.
Yeah, on TikTok.
160 something thousand on Instagram. So just a little bit more than I have.
Okay. Okay, good.
So tell me about how did that happen to be on the Today Show?
It's wild. You can't predict a lot of these things in social media. I think we all just try to put things out there that will probably entertain. I put out what entertains me, and every once in a while you'll strike gold. Well, last summer I decided I was watching baseball, and I saw that some of the teams had their players mic'd up, and you can kind of hear what they're talking about down on the field, and that's kind of fun for content. And so I thought, I wonder if I could do that in the orchestral world. What if I mic'd up the other trumpet players in the section with me at the West Texas Symphony? And so I talked to the guys, and they said, sure, no one's going to watch it, but yeah, we'll do it. So started micing up and posting some behind-the-scenes content about us bantering during rehearsals. And it started to give me a little bit of traction. People started to watch it. And I kind of decided to lean into that trumpet content. So I've got a high school daughter. I've got 3 daughters, and one of them's in high school. And I decided, every good dad should try to embarrass his kids at least a little bit,
100%.
Builds character.
Yeah.
And so I decided to pick her up from school by playing my trumpet out the sunroof as a way to sort of signal that I was there.
Right.
And, she goes to school. There's a lot of kids out front. And so this was going to be my way to embarrass her. So I pull up and I play that old song, Tequila, out the sunroof as a way to kind of, signal that I was there. And much to my surprise, not only was she not really embarrassed, when we got to that big part at the end of the song, all the high school kids shouted, Tequila!
That's awesome. That's great.
Then I had other, conflicting thoughts about, am I encouraging the wrong things with these kids? And but no, she got into the car and laughed and loved it, and she's just full of life and loves to have a good time. So I thought, well, that's pretty fun. So I posted that, and that went immediately viral. And people were seeming to respond well to the positive father-daughter relationships. It was very unique. There's some lunatic playing his trumpet out the car. And most people were impressed that this young teenage girl wasn't embarrassed by her dad, but thought it was fun.
Yeah.
And there was some good things there. So that really exploded, and that got picked up by the Today Show. Just kind of one of their very brief good news kinds of things. They just said, hey, the car pickup line can be a difficult place, but some dad from Midland has decided that he's found a way to make it fun.
To make it fun, yeah.
And they posted that, and I started getting text messages from people watching Saturday morning on the Today Show.
Did you take the trumpet with you to the Today Show?
Oh, well, we didn't get to go to the Today Show.
Oh, was it like
they found the clip and just shared it as part of their announcing and their show that morning as kind of good news.
Well, I was going to ask if you were in New York, if you did some busking while you were there.
I should have.
To make some money on the side, and
Yeah.
stuff. So, did you bring the trumpet with you?
I'm always prepared.
Okay,
And so,
awesome.
The trumpet is here. We're ready to go.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that you played Tequila.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
I know that one.
So is that the wildest or craziest song that you know on?
It's one of them. I come
Really?
from a classical background. What brought us to
Okay.
West Texas was playing in the symphony, so I'm more familiar with the Bach and the Beethoven than
Okay.
some of the.
Yeah, I'm not. And when you said that you're more classical, I was like, classical and tequila, does that go together? So I don't know.
I
But
don't know.
so I just got to ask you because I have a favorite artist,
Oh,
and I
okay.
want to see if you can play some of their music.
Oh, what is
so
this?
I am a U2 fan. Is there any U2 songs that you could play?
I mean,
Is there anything?
There are. I'm sure. I'm sure that there are. I have no idea what I would play. Do you have like a favorite? What's your favorite U2 song?
Streets Have No Name.
I've
Yeah.
like Streets Have No Name, Beautiful Day. There's like
Yeah.
all these, but I don't
Well,
even
what
know
song
key
would
they
you
do
want to
it.
play for me? If you've got the audience now listening.
Oh
in,
man,
And there's something that you maybe it's a Taylor Swift song.
there's a lot of Taylor Swift
there
going
Ta-
on
you got a
in
Taylor
my house.
Swift? Let's
no,
hear it.
no, there's just a lot of Taylor Swift in my house. I got three
in the house,
daughters,
yeah.
and so it's all
Oh, you
Taylor
poor
Swift.
guy.
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
It's like a girl's dorm.
that's exactly right. All the
Right.
time. Even the dog is a woman.
Play us something like.
What's a Taylor Swift song, man?
See if anybody will comment on the show and go, I know that song.
Yeah, this is embarrassing.
Yeah.
See if they know what that one
I know
is.
that exactly what
you
that
know
song.
it?
No, I don't. What is that song?
That is a Love Story. One
Love
of her
Story.
first
Okay,
big
yeah,
breakout,
that's awesome.
breakout hits.
That's
Yeah.
great. When did you start playing trumpet? Give me that backstory.
Yeah, so both my parents are musicians, amateur musicians. Grew up doing music in the church. Mom played organ, dad was music director at the church, and so grew up singing and taking piano lessons. And in 6th grade, joined the band. Wanted to be a drummer, but my parents said absolutely not. You're not going to be blowing the drums or playing the drums in the house. So I had to choose something a little bit more melodic. So we went with the trumpet. Probably just as loud, but at least it plays a melody. And did band through junior high, high school, and went to college at UT Arlington for music education. Met my wife.
Moving Mavs.
That's right.
Yeah,
go
moving
Mavs.
Mavs. Yeah.
So we met my wife originally in music theory class, and it was love immediately. I'm sure for her. It took me a while. No, I'm joking.
Did you propose through trumpet playing
I
to
did.
her?
Well,
No?
you know what? I did have trumpet music going on in the background
You
when
did?
I
Okay.
proposed.
Really?
Yeah, we worked at a lovely restaurant in downtown Fort Worth called the Italian Inn. I don't think it's there anymore, sadly.
yeah.
And it was down in a basement, and all the waiters and waitresses would sing as well as wait the tables. They had a pianist that would play there every night. And so if your tables were taken care of, you could run over and sing a song. And so music was a part of that. Had a lot of friends there and decided that I was going to propose there. So I talked to the manager and booked the little, like the party room. They closed it off for me. I had candles, had the rose petals, had the wine on the table, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I had some jazz trumpet playing in the background to sort of set the mood.
What is your influence in music? You said classical.
Yeah.
So it's more Bach.
Yeah, I
Kind of what?
grew up primarily playing, in band and orchestra,
Right.
but also love jazz music. And so a lot of influences in trumpet in jazz. People like Miles Davis and Louis Armstrong are some of my favorites.
Yeah.
Living artists right now, there's a guy named Wynton Marsalis, who's just one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion. And so big influence there. But love classical music as well. Love playing in an orchestra. I remember the first time I got to sit in a when in band you have all the instruments but no strings. And then when you sit in an orchestra, now you've got an ocean of violins and cellos and double basses. And it just adds this depth and beauty that it was immediate love for me to play in an orchestra. So that's how I kind of fell into that.
I appreciate you bringing that. I don't want to be responsible if that breaks or anything.
Should I put it down?
Yeah,
All right.
I think you should put it down now. But you mentioned drums, and it's like, that's what I played.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you for giving the shout out to the drum corps.
Absolutely.
I had some friends that were like in the Phantom Regiment, the drum
Oh,
and bugle corps and stuff
really?
when I was younger in college and everything and stuff.
I did 3
so
years
I know a
of-
little bit that. Have you been in?
I did 3 years
corps?
of DCI. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And
What was that experience like?
fantastic, hard, difficult, but transformative. So I did 3 years with a group out of Chicago called the Cavaliers, and they're actually good rivals with Phantom Regiment because they're both from Illinois. And so I did that through my college years.
Okay.
Over the summer, you'd get on a bus and tour all over the United States, sleep on a gym floor, practice outside all day. I'll tell you, I had a great tan back then, but no longer. And during those years, I met some amazing fellow musicians and lifelong friends, because you're living together. It's like having 150 roommates, and you're on a bus a lot and talk and laugh and compete well. And we were very fortunate. Of those 3 years that I marched, we won the World Championships twice and came in second that last year. And so it was a very good experience musically and competitively, and it was a wonderful time. So yeah, I'm very familiar with that.
Awesome. Well, a lot of our listeners and viewers may not know really your backstory and your journey. So would love to, because there's more to you than just the trumpet.
That's right.
Right? So I want to dive into all of that. So start us from where you're from, get us kind of to how you got to Midland.
Sure. I was born in South Carolina. My dad was in college, and I kind of wasn't really on the agenda for he and my mom. But I was born, so I'm here, and I'm glad. And so born in South Carolina, spent then a couple of years in Florida as my parents moved around, graduated, took jobs, moved to Texas in the DFW area when I was about 8. So Texas always has felt like home, because that's where we got established. Like I said, music was pretty much all I was good at. I tried 7th grade football, did not work out. My joke is, and this is absolutely the truth, in junior high, there was the A team and the B team. And the year that I played football, they started the C team.
Of course.
Now, guess where I was?
Yeah.
So,
C team.
Special team just for you, Eric. And so I carried on through music. I was much more successful. Did a music education degree at UT Arlington, met my wife there. And as I was wrapping that up, had always intended to be a music teacher. I always have felt a teaching gift and a calling to teach in some way. But as I spoke to some of my mentors, they mentioned that in teaching, they didn't get to perform as much anymore. It really takes a lot of their time. So I kind of just had a moment and prayed about it and said, if I could get into a master's program for performance, that might be a sign that I could probably pursue that as a career. And I was very fortunate, made it to Arizona State University and went there for 2 years, got a master's in trumpet performance, and started to look into maybe being a performer full-time. And as it would happen, there was an audition here in West Texas for the West Texas Symphony, and took that audition and won it. And what's great about this is we talk a lot about here in West Texas, a lot of people who come here want to get out. And, and somehow it keeps us, or you think you're only going to be here for a few years and you're going to leave, and that's very similar to our experience. While we were in grad school, my father-in-law was working on a really wonderful home here. He worked for a home builder based out of DFW, but he was actually here in Odessa building a very nice house. And so we would travel and go see the house from time to time on our trips, back and forth, summer or Christmas. We'd have to come through I-20 from Phoenix, and we would go tour the house. And it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And he was doing magnificent work. But we would always, have lunch with him, get back on I-20, and my wife would say, it's a beautiful house, but I will never live in Odessa, Texas.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Death sentence.
Right?
Yeah.
Never say never.
Never say never.
So, fast forward a few months, I get this audition. I say, "Hey, honey, guess where we're gonna live?" And it did not take long for us to see the beauty of West Texas in the people and in the opportunities. I have found you can do just about anything you want to do artistically out here, because you're not competing with people like in a Houston, a New York, a Dallas. I could be in any kind of band or group, or and the people out here are very willing and receptive of the arts. They're just kind of waiting for people to come in and provide that.
Sure.
So fast forward again another few years, and we're established here in West Texas and loving it. And I had a little bit of a health scare. And there was a time where it was a little bit dicey and weren't really sure if I was going to make it. And praise God, I'm here and healthy, and no long-term ramifications from that. But in talking to my wife after that happened, she said, I had to kind of think through, what would I do if you had passed and I had these 3 young daughters? I've got family in DFW. Where would I go? She said, I used to say I would never live in Odessa, Midland, but I don't think I'd live anywhere else now. And so just to see the beauty and the value of the people, the relationships, the opportunities we've had in West Texas, for her to say that, I think is very meaningful.
Yeah. Is there an instrument that you don't play that you would have wanted to learn how to play?
Oh, so many. I had a brief stint with the cello in college. All of us as music education majors have to take a little bit of all the instruments, so that if I were then employed in an orchestra program, I could teach it basically to kids. And I fell in love with the cello. It's a beautiful instrument. But for me, I think it's the piano. It's kind of universal.
Piano,
And you can play all kinds of fun styles. Everybody loves the piano. If I could play the piano well,
Yeah.
I think that would be nice.
What would you say to because you come from a musical family, not just you and Emily and the girls, but your growing up family.
That's right.
Correct? What would you say to a young family listening or watching? What age should they push their kid toward music if there's a liking toward that? What would be that golden time?
I mean, from birth, give them little musical toys or sing to them or, take them to, preschool music classes. Sometimes those are offered. So exposure is really important when they're very young. If they show some aptitude and some excitement about it, by the time they can read, so kindergarten, first grade, when they're reading pretty well, because they'll have to learn A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the notes and things like that. And they have to have a little bit of ability to, communicate well and talk to a teacher. So that's about as young as I would start somebody. And then, of course, there are lots of great opportunities either through school, music programs. The West Texas Symphony has a children's chorale. So kids from 2nd to 8th grade are welcome to come and audition. It's called the Voices of the Permian Basin. And my beautiful wife runs that and is always just wonderful at teaching these young kids how to sing and getting them exposed to some really good repertoire. And they perform a lot out here with the symphony at the beautiful Wagner Noel and other places. So there's a lot of ways to get young kids involved in music, and those are a couple that I would do.
I know you guys recently sang National Anthem
at
the Rock Hounds.
Yeah.
Is that a nerve-wracking kind of thing to do? Like you afraid you're going to miss the lyric or anything like that? Because I know there's some really bad videos on YouTube out there of people who have butchered, but is that something that is nerve-wracking to you? Or are you a little nervous when you do that?
Yeah, not so much anymore. It always is the first few times, and I'll tell you, if you want to go viral, just butcher the anthem because that will go straight to the top of YouTube recommended. It's a hard song to sing. It has weird words, like what's a rampart, like a lot of they're just unusual words. And the melody is a little tricky and people take it very seriously as we should. It's our national anthem.
Absolutely.
So you always want to do honor to that. We practice a lot as a family and we've done it a few times. I think the next generation of that though is my girls are ready to start doing that by themselves, like not just as a family.
Okay, yeah.
And so we're excited to sort of usher them out of the nest a little bit and say, hey, you don't need mom and dad to sing this with you. You can carry yourself well. They've got great poise. They've got great pitch.
Right.
So I'm excited. I think they're going to be doing that for one of the local, Rockhounds games here in a few weeks. It's just going to be them.
Awesome. I know you're an advocate for the music and being in the music industry and pushing students that way. I know you're at University of Texas Permian Basin. I want to really get into that, dive into your community engagement on that. But what are three? I know you guys have played in a lot of places around Midland, Odessa. What would you say to like three up-and-coming local artists? What are three venues that would be great for them to cut their teeth on or to try to pursue and get into?
That's great. What a wonderful question. People love to say there's nothing to do in West Texas, and I just think there couldn't be further from the truth. We just maybe need to do a better job of advertising. But there's so much to do. In Midland, I love a place called The Destination. It's down just south of Front Street, south of downtown by the tracks. And the owners there are very wonderful. They love music. They're always having wonderful things out there. So definitely check that out. They also host the Tall City Blues Fest every year. So The Destination's a great one. And they do open mic nights from time to time. So even if you're not like an established band, you can go and grab the mic and, like you said, cut your teeth. In Odessa, a couple, Flair Taverna. Is a restaurant on JBS and University, right across the street from Red Lobster and across from the UTPB campus. Flair Taverna, they have live music every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I believe. Okay. They also host about once a quarter in conjunction with the West Texas Jazz Society, which is a group that I'm serving on the board for. They host a jazz jam session about once every quarter on a Sunday afternoon. Anybody can come, bring your horn, bring a song you want to sing, and come up and jam with the community. And then the West Texas Jazz Society also partners with the Odessa Marriott in downtown Odessa to have music every Saturday night. So every Saturday in the lobby from 7:30 to 10:30, people can go over and listen. And, maybe if there are people who want to get on that roster, they could reach out to me and we could talk about that. So lots of places.
That's cool. Thank you for answering that. Tell me about UTPB. I know that at first when I heard you were there, I was like, wait, that's not a music school. But what is your role there, and how did you get tied tied up with UTPB.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful. I've just finished my first year there,
Yeah.
and it's a brand new position. It's called Director of Community Engagement for Music and Visual Arts, and the idea is to connect our students who are making music, making art, doing theater, out into the community, so enriching the community through the music that we have. But it's also a big part is bringing our community in. If there are people who want to support what we're doing, if there are people who want to give to scholarships, if there are people who want to get involved and volunteer things, my job is to make those connections and to link up people to promote the arts in our community and in a bigger way through the university.
What would be the challenge to that? Because I would think, like in West Texas, it's football.
Sure.
Right? It's Friday Night Lights. So what would be some of those challenges in pursuing and pushing students to do that in music?
Well, yeah, the challenge for getting students involved in music sometimes is, and I did many years at Odessa College as well in their music field for about 14 years. I was at OC, and you're exactly right, because we have oil and gas, which is our economic driver, and that's wonderful. We're so glad to have that. It can sometimes be difficult to convince a student who maybe has some musical talent and maybe a teaching skill that they should, invest 4, 5, 6 years of their time in college and maybe a master's degree when they could probably just go get a job right away outside of high school and make a good amount of money. So it's really just about talking to those students and aligning where their heart is and where their skill set is. Sometimes it can be a challenge to convince parents and the community that there is a career in music. I think there's a myth about like the starving artist, and sometimes that's true. Sometimes people make sacrifices for their art because it's just so important to them. But, I'm here to tell you that there are a lot of ways to make a career in the music field that is, going to support a family and, a parent that sees their kid that wants to go, be a choir director or an orchestra teacher or play the trumpet, professionally.
Right.
I've been able to, provide for my children, and it's been a wonderful career path because it also pays out in a lot of those intangible things. I don't hate my job. I love the work that I get to do. That's a real blessing. Not everybody gets that. So it's been wonderful to kind of convince the students there that there are wonderful opportunities through music. And of course, students who do band, orchestra, choir in high school, whether or not they decide to be a music major, it's important for them to know that they can subsidize their college education through scholarships by still performing in those ensembles. So we have a lot of students, I would say 40, maybe 50% of our marching band at UTPB is non-music majors. They're students getting degrees in chemical engineering or education or some other field, but they love to sing. They love to play their trumpet, so they get to put on the uniform and play and have that camaraderie with the other music students, and they're getting big-time scholarship dollars for doing that.
Is this a new position at UTPB? Is
Brand new.
That they've decided, hey, we need this area
That's right.
and stuff. So that's going. You've been there a year.
That's right.
What's your leadership style like?
Oh, servant leadership is my style. In this particular role, I don't have a lot of leadership other than influence. Like no one reports to me in this new job.
Right.
In my previous job, I did have a team of 10 that I was directly responsible for leading, coaching, supervising, inspiring. And for me, it was, I'm not going to ask them to do something that I wouldn't do first. And I like that because I think it sends a good message. I also like it because I get to learn about what I'm asking people to do so that I can speak well and speak informed about that. So for me, it was a lot of lead by example. And I think there's a lot of crossover with my job in the West Texas Symphony as well. I'm principal trumpet in the orchestra. And so my jobs, plural, work best when I get myself together, when I prepare myself. So if we're going to give a concert with the orchestra, I've got to rehearse that music. I've got to know it back and front so that I can listen and coach, sometimes non-verbally, right, just through my playing, the rest of the brass about how we're going to approach this particular section. I think there's a lot of parallels in leadership in a company or in a school. Like if you don't have your stuff together, people will see right through it. And I think if you try to bluff people and give off an air that you've got it all under control and you don't, I think you lose a lot of respect.
Wow.
So servant leadership and have yourself put together.
Bringing music into your role at UTPB, I don't come from a musical family, so I see that and I'm like, how does that work? How does that really gel together? Your community outreach music, but how are you recruiting students? What are you going outside of the Permian Basin to recruit, or are you just focused primarily on the students that are here in the local schools?
We prioritize our local community. One of the 4 pillars of the University of Texas Permian Basin is to serve our region. So we know that we're here and that we need to benefit our local folks first. They rely on us, they look to us for that, and we want to provide that. However, the music department and many of the programs at the university also advertise and recruit nationally and even internationally. We know that we've got some wonderful international students that have come to study in a lot of different ways here. The music program, for example, does a lot of advertising in the world of what's called TMEA, the Texas Music Educators Association.
Familiar with that name.
There you go. So TMEA is a powerhouse, one of the best in the nation. Texas really does music well. And so we advertise there. We want to make sure that students in Texas know that the UTPB music program exists, that we operate out of and get to use the beautiful Wagner Noel Performing Arts Center. And so that's, I get to office out there every day. It's really wonderful, and students get to perform on that stage regularly. So we want to let students from across our region know, but we do prioritize our local folks first.
Wow. Is there I mentioned I'm not from a musical fan. I played drums, and it was because I had to pick something.
You sure?
Right? And so I have 2 parts to this because I'm fascinated with just kind of the direction that you're going with this. Because is there a misunderstanding in the community toward a music program or a music field? Because I come from that area where, you want to learn a lot of life skills, go play sports, right? You can learn a lot about, and I'm sure you can, and you did, and I played.
Yep.
I was baseball, I played, all the sports and stuff, but I was told you got to choose something musically. Nobody really invested into me and poured into me toward wanting to choose something musically. It was like, okay, you're not really gifted in this area. You can't sing, you can't do this, you can't really read music, so do drums.
Yeah.
Do you find that as a challenge too of a misunderstanding?
Yeah, it can. It can just be an elective, that you check off.
Right.
And some people kind of know, well, they're just getting their elective, just, don't really invest the time and energy. They're just going to struggle, but they're going to go on to be successful somewhere else. And look, that can be true. The world doesn't need everyone to be a professional musician. The world doesn't need everyone to be a professional athlete, but we do need to find and nurture those skill sets, as you said, because I do believe that things like personal responsibility and teamwork, you can find that on the baseball field, you can find that in an orchestra. So those skills, I think that I do believe in. I think that is so important. And my wife and I were having a discussion. She's also a music educator, and we said, what do we think a successful music education looks like? Because I know that in my path, I've seen people who were those TMEA all-state musicians for multiple years. They were dominating at the field of music and very good. But when they got out of high school, man, they put the trumpet under the bed and they haven't touched it since. They were burned out, and maybe there was too much pressure to be good. And it didn't really nurture the love of music long term. And on the other hand, you can find people who don't have nearly the accolades maybe, but they love music and they're still contributing by playing in a community band, or they sing in their church choir, or they get in with the community choir. The West Texas Symphony also has an adult community choir that people can audition for. So there are a lot of ways for people to get involved and keep making music as a major part of their life without doing it as a career path. In my opinion, that's a successful music education, that you love it enough to pursue it even beyond your career path. If there's any misconception around education right now, for me, it's something to do with, and I haven't navigated all of this yet, but I know that there's something that bothers me about some people push that the only thing you need to do in college is take the classes that are going to lead to your job.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And I don't disagree that we shouldn't maybe help students along a pathway that gives them some validation, like really does prepare them well. But I don't necessarily think that's the only thing that college is for. I think a higher education it should be that you educate yourself beyond just what you want to do for a career. I think there is value in taking some classes as an elective, to experiment, to be curious. I think we need to nurture curiosity a little bit more. And what I've seen in a trend across the nation for sure, if not the world, is hyper focus on you only need these 4 classes and you can go get a job. That might be true, but when you get into that job, is your whole life only going to be that?
Right.
What other interests are you going to have? What's going to make you excited on a Friday afternoon when you get off of work to go take your kids? What are you going to do? Are you going to go see a symphony concert? Are you going to go to the ballet? Are you going to go enjoy good food because you took a culinary class that one time?
Right.
There's a lot of ways that you can be really opened up as a human being through higher ed. And that might be one of the misconceptions. And so letting people know that you should be curious, you should take classes, and even if you're not a music major, get into those music classes. You're gonna find your tribe, you're gonna find some friends, you're gonna have support when classes inevitably get tough. And you can use the skills you have to subsidize your education and get those scholarships. So,
What do you think's next for the program that you're going to bring into it? What is that one piece that you, in the next 3 to 5 years, if you're still in that role, that you would like to see that program go to?
yeah, right now it's just about just recruiting. It's about making it more well known. So in the next 5 to 10 years, I would love to see some scholarships be established, like some endowed scholarships for music majors, for students who are wanting to pursue this. I would like to see our students performing across the state and maybe even across the country. So working with the band director, for example, the marching band has been invited to go down to San Antonio to do an exhibition performance at the state marching contest. So all the high schools that have advanced to the state contest are going to get to see the UTPB band perform. I think it's at the end of the contest as the judges are tallying the scores. There's going to be a nice little break in the schedule. Get to, show off a little bit at the state level. They're also taking a trip to Washington, D.C. To play at Walter Reed Hospital, to do some sightseeing. Many of our students have never been out of the state. And so college can be a vehicle to let them see more of the world than they ever would have seen. That was my experience. In college, our jazz band took a trip to Germany and Switzerland. I never would have gone to Europe. I still have never been back. Without that opportunity in college and that infrastructure, I may not have had those wonderful life experiences. So music and the arts can take you to places you never would have assumed. So I would like to see kind of growth there. I think long term, the music program is about to outgrow the Wagner Noel.
Really?
Yeah. We've got too many students and not enough space there. So I'd like to see kind of what's next out there for that Midland campus. I know that there's a lot of ideas and investment around that space out there with a lot of partners that want to do some things out in, I think they're calling it the Beacon. I think the PSP, Permian Strategic Partnership, is looking to develop that, between the cities, some restaurants, some hotels, things like that. I would love to be a part of helping to, find out where the academic side of that is going to be, just being some counsel on that.
Apart from the Symphony and some of the other organizations you've talked about that are primarily music related, are there any organizations that you, whether it be through UTPB or just your family, that you guys are involved in and serving in the community?
Yeah, so I volunteer with Odessa Arts. It is arts related. That's where my skill set is. So with Odessa Arts, which is a nonprofit in Odessa that helps to subsidize and sponsor through city money a lot of the arts that happen. And so they put on all kinds of things to increase quality of life, beautifying the downtown area with murals and music and things like that. So definitely volunteer with the West Texas Jazz Society. My wife and I and all my girls are very involved in our church and giving back through music and other ways there, serving. And then we're going to be leading, helping to help some parents through the school. My girls go to Midland Classical. It's a very unique educational style. It's a wonderful school, and we've been very blessed to be there. But it's unique and it's different. And so my wife and I are going to be helping some parents who are new to the school kind of navigate those waters this year and help them.
I think before we went on air, you said that my wife was one of your kids' second or third grade teacher.
Second
back
grade
in the
teacher.
day. We didn't even know that, so I think that's cool. So I want to kind of wrap things up and focus a few questions just on you. We talked about music. We talked about UTPB and the role there, and I applaud that. I want to put it in the show notes how people can get a hold of you and connect with you and all the things that you're doing, and also to watch your NBC Today Show episode or whatever. But you mentioned earlier that you had gone through a stage of being sick.
Yeah.
What did you learn through that little season of your life?
Yeah, a lot. So the very brief story there is just felt sick on a Friday. Just didn't feel good. Thought I'd leave work early, go home and rest. Couldn't sleep. Tried to go to the doctor, but while I was waiting in the waiting room, everything just kind of started to crash. So they ended up calling the ambulance. I was put in the ER. That was a Friday night, and then I woke up the next Thursday. So something happened that night where Everything started crashing. Hospital called my wife and said, "You better get here. He might not make it through the night." And put me in a medicated coma there, sedation until Thursday. Woke up. Ended up being like really bad pneumonia, flu, and sepsis. So organs started shutting down. It was pretty severe. And being asleep for 4 or 5 days was not hard. That was fine.
Right.
It was being awake, but being intubated,
Right.
big port of IVs, doctors and nurses inside the room all the time, not really knowing things. I was awake, but not really out of the clear or out of the woods. And so there was a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of fear. Had 3 young daughters. My youngest was only 3 months at the time. And being awake and trying to sort all that out was really tough. Had a good friend, Aaron Hughes, who had been through something very similar. And he came to the hospital room, talked to me, we prayed, and he was able to kind of say, "Look, I know how you feel. It's going to be okay." And in that moment, I was just reminded that, like, God says, "My grace is sufficient for you." And so I just kind of, from that moment on, the anxiety really subsided. And I've learned my grace is sufficient for you. That in life, if I'm struggling or if I have a desire, if I want something that maybe it doesn't seem like that's God's timing, just reminding myself that His grace is sufficient. What I already have from Him is worth so much more that I could ever even imagine or dream.
Right.
You know, I want to be a multimillionaire trumpet player. Like, that's so small in comparison to what God has already given me here through my family and my friends. So I learned that verse just comes to mind a lot.
Wow. I always ask our guests 2 questions to kind of close out things. One is, we're sitting at this table,
Yeah.
having a conversation. I think it's important to identify the people that you let sit at your table to pour into you. Who would some of those people be?
Those people who pour into me, man, my father is the number one person who has influenced and poured into my life. He is wise. He is patient. Any chance I get to talk to him, we talk about deep things. That's my father. I've been very blessed. Other men at the church, you know, that share like-minded mission and vision and values. Those are important people for me. So,
What do you want to be known for?
Probably not playing the trumpet out of a sunroof, as fun as that is. Yeah, husband and father. I read a book many years ago by an author, Simon Sinek. It's called Start With Why. And I really resonated with that book and with a lot of the work that he does. And in that book, he kind of challenges you to find your why. What is it that gets you out of bed in the morning? What's your mission? What's your purpose? A lot of people have wrestled with this conversation. And I kind of ended up saying that my why is that I exist to empower others to do the things that inspire them. And that's why being a teacher works well as my job. Because what I like to do is show people and empower them and give them tools, resources, a platform to succeed. So right now, my kids are my number one group right there. My oldest is going to be in 10th grade, so they're still very much in the house and kind of going through some good adolescent years where I need to be pouring into them. And so my why is to empower others, and that's what's kind of leading me and guiding me right now.
Wow, I appreciate that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you do in our community. I applaud you. I remember back when you were sick and getting that call as a Midland Classical family to pray for the Bakers and stuff. So thank you for being on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, let me say the West Texas community is a loving community, and I never felt or even experienced that kind of love than when I was going through that. I'm telling you, it wasn't just the prayers and the nice things. It was people were at our house the next morning. There was a guy mowing the lawn. There was a guy fixing a part in my fence that had been driving me crazy for months that I hadn't fixed. And my daughters apparently were saying, like, what is going on? All these people are bringing us donuts and food and playing with us. And, like, people came to serve and to love on our family in a way that was very powerful. So thank you to the West Texas community for that.
And thank you for being on the show. Thanks for giving us some time.
Appreciate it,
Thank you for joining with us this week. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe on all of our platforms. Don't forget our nonprofit of the week is One Accord for Kids, and check out the Catwalk Media Group for all of your social media, your video production, your graphic design, website needs. Thank you so much, and we will see you all next week.